When people say to me, how are you today, Jack? I say, just another day in paradise. How can you be in this place on this day, just another day in paradise?
Anybody that never lived in a place like this, they don't know what they're missing.
We are experiencing $1 billion growth here in the Foley area. We're experiencing astronomical numbers that are putting strains on our school system.
It's survival, it is cooperation, it is a way of life, it is the lifestyle that we want to maintain and sustain, and it's all comes down to the people.
Knowing what I know now, I could never just walk away. It's like once you see the needs, you have to do something about them.
We have an old saying down at the beach that once the salt water gets in your veins, you never leave. I'm kind of an example of that.
With Bowen County being a settlement of, I think, 7 different European countries come and settle Bowen County. And each area of the county was a different ethnic group. But Alberta Foley is very much from the German area. And in 1979, when Hurricane Frederick come through, it destroyed our house and many, many houses. And I think a lot of the older people that live here, been here all the time, always will look back at that event as one of the biggest catalysts of change that we've ever known. And it's never stopped since. Now we've slowed down and had recessions and different things, but Bowen County, even in them terms, just kept moving forward.
Some have referred to it as the Iron Triangle, with Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and Foley all anchored in one set of objectives and values and so forth. That's not necessarily works for every perspective as it relates to economics or education, but it certainly worked for the resiliency and recovery efforts that we participated in.
So the Iron Triangle is just the perception that when we all work together and commit to communicate what our goals are and what our direction is, we accomplish so much more and we're that much stronger. We compete in this area for a lot of resources on a state level, on a regional level, on a national level, and even when you talk about trying to communicate with your elected officials about your needs, what your coastal community needs to survive, to be resilient, you can't do that on your own, one person going to the table, but you come together as an Iron Triangle representing this entire area from the coast inland to the retail center that supports the coast, and again, the workforce that supports the coast. Your voice becomes a lot louder.
I've seen a lot of hurricanes come to the island and shape the story of the island, how we always seem to recover. Everybody pulls together. It's a lot of hard work.
Resiliency would be easier to talk about if it were just the hurricanes, because I think the resiliency goes with, we've been through so many hurricanes, it's almost routine. FEMA's going to come in, you do your reports, you go to the office, you know, theoretically they'll give you some money, usually not as much as you want or need, but we came back from those.
Mainly it depends on Mother Nature. I mean, we get
and the Corps of Engineers.
We get a Cat 5 hurricane or something coming in and hit us directly like a Katrina. This island could be crippled for years. It could wash that West End and take.
Well, it already did in Katrina.
I mean, you take, how many houses were missing during Katrina? 200?
300, we lost 300.
300 houses.
And we had lost
vanished.
more in Ivan.
Right. And
the year before.
That's what I say, it depends on Mother Nature on that there.
The bayou has been hammered over and over again in the resource base, whether it's the amount of seafood or whether it's leadership or whatever, you know, it just hasn't responded that well. Dauphin Island's got beaches and has a township and is eligible for grants and has people that write for grants, you know, and they've adapted. The houses are elevated, you know, they got long-term problems. I can talk about it all day long, but that's not the point. The point is that the bayou hasn't had that resource base.
I mean, this was just, it was a peaceful place. I wouldn't trade I wouldn't trade not one day of my life to been here. And before the bridge, it was just peace and quiet.
A powerful explosion rocked a giant oil rig, igniting a fire and launching a day-long search for 11 workers.
It was a spectacular explosion, a massive fire, and a genuine human tragedy involving 11 missing men. Tonight, the oil platform that was on fire off the coast of Louisiana is gone. It sank today into the waters of the Gulf of Mexico.
An environmental disaster is growing in the Gulf of Mexico off the Louisiana coast. Crude oil spewing from a leaky valve 5,000 feet below where a massive oil rig used to be, and it's spilling at the rate of 1,000 barrels, the equivalent of 42,000 gallons a day.
Already, this oil spill is the worst environmental disaster America has ever faced. And unlike an earthquake or a hurricane, it's not a single event that does its damage in a matter of minutes or days. The millions of gallons of oil that have spilled into the Gulf of Mexico are more like an epidemic, one that we will be fighting for months and even years. But make no mistake, we will fight this spill with everything we've got for as long as it takes. We will make BP pay for the damage their company has caused. And we will do whatever's necessary to help the Gulf Coast and its people recover from this tragedy.
We went to bed that night and they said they had an oil spill in the Gulf. We woke up the next morning and within a week our business was down 90%.
Yeah.
All the fisheries was closed. All of Louisiana was closed. Any shrimp we got, we had to get out of South Florida or the East Coast.
The oil spill was a phenomenon because it had never happened before. We didn't know how to respond. We didn't know how to react. We didn't know how to move forward.
This was different. You had something that happened in April when that well blew, and you didn't know in April and May. I mean, days and weeks and months went by, and every single day it was like bracing for a Cat 5 to hit your shores. And you didn't know when it was going to move past you, when it was going to move ashore. And when it did move ashore, after weeks and weeks and months of it being so catastrophic in the Gulf and spewing, you didn't know what you were going to be left with. And these people who were fishermen and oystermen or boat captains who took folks deep sea fishing or parasailing or just canoeing in the backwaters, nobody knew what their life was going to be like if we were going to be able to enjoy our coast as locals who live here.
And frankly, everybody began to realize that it seemed to appear that our way of life was gone forever, particularly on the beachfront. We had I mentioned earlier, a charter boat captain who took his own life in that despair. He was like a second or third generation charter boat captain. That's the only way he knew to make his business. And that's been taken away from him. So it's the other thing, and somebody pointed this out to me, and somebody smarter than me, is that when a natural disaster occurs, you don't really have anybody to be mad at. Because you know they're there, you know they're coming. In fact, if you're going to work in preparation and build your resiliency, you don't prepare as if it will come, you prepare when it will come. The certainty is going to come at some point in time in your life cycle. With the man-made disaster, we're mad.
Magnolia Springs, because most people derive their incomes either from being retired or their incomes come from outside the town. We have hardly anyone here that lives here that actually makes their living in Magnolia Springs.
now we have all these imported shrimp coming in, and it's made the price of shrimp for our shrimpers to go down really low, and that has cost them their living. Some of them have shut down and can't continue shrimping because they can't compete with the imported shrimp from China. So that in itself is just hit this community very hard.
We had some pretty in-depth studies of the Valdez disaster in Alaska and others, but at the end of the day, it was a pretty organic, homegrown realization. We have to focus on the mental health and protect our people from despair.
We have a mental health office here in the community, but the people have to go to Mobile most of the time to get assessed before they can get an appointment down here. So I play an advocate role by contacting them and saying, look, this person, one, doesn't have transportation to get to Mobile, and I'll work with them until they can provide a way for that person to get assessed down here. So there's partnerships between all of us, all of the different resources here in the Bayou, but we just need a place to all come together, I feel like, to offer even more. But the main issue right now is transportation. If they have to leave the community, it's all but impossible, especially for the elderly.
My business is back where it was. But now as far as the seafood, it hasn't come back yet. We're getting probably half the shrimp we was getting. It takes 6 boats now to bring in what 3 boats was bringing in before.
And October, I decided to take the kids down to the beach, and it was the first time that I had taken them to the beach because you had these different various sinus issues or this or that, and I took the kids down and I looked at the beach and it looked very clean, and I allowed the kids to play in the sand, and everything from your eye level looked great. It was clean. And she began to build a sand castle, and underneath it I looked down and she's covered in oil and she's playing with tar balls. And I quickly moved her and washed her up. What scared me about that was after a hurricane, you'll get people together and you'll make a quick turn, you'll clean up, you'll get your electricity back, your water going, and you're resilient and you rebuild. What scared me most about the oil spill was, one, we've never had one happen before, but what lay underneath the long-term effects at that moment. I knew that there were things to this equation that would give us much more long-term damaging effects.
We didn't see any on our beach, so we went swimming, and we had a neighbor who would not let their grandchildren put their big toe in the Gulf because they were terrified that there would be contamination. But I'm still here, and I swam in it.
If you had seen what my boat's seen, you wouldn't have been in it.
Police were stationed at the offices down here to protect the people, the BP people.
They took over certain areas of the island. If you came close to them with a camera, your camera was confiscated.
Right.
It was, you know, they took over the school with armed guards, 2 armed guards at the entrance to the school. They took over our Isle Dauphine facilities, which is the Dauphin Island Property Owners Association. Same thing, multiple armed guards. They constructed 6-foot high fences so nobody could see in the windows.
So we should have thought, well, things are not going to go the way we want it because they feel that they need police protection.
Our mayor and town council, the morning of that oil spill, had the foresight to get their hands on a barge, and what did you call the baffling that would have prevented
the
oil?
boom.
The boom.
It's actually a boom type.
They got on that before even Gulf Shores Orange Beach government had the chance to even think that far in advance, and we secured something that nobody else was able to secure because of their foresight.
It's like that little small storm we had a couple weeks ago. 2 days prior to that, we made enough ice to fill this room up. And we didn't tell a soul, but if that road had got washed out and the power line been down, it would have been a sign out front, free ice.
Yeah.
See, we was preparing for the community,
Yeah.
and we would have had it.
What it took, though, is I think, is having all of us who were involved initially met at least twice a week for a couple hours. It was every Tuesday and Thursday, or every Monday and Thursday morning for a couple of hours, but then we found ourselves in there very often again because we had so many people coming in. It was a place you can kind of share with each other, where are you in this thing? You know, what are businesses like? And where are we in our path out? And you can share with each other, and we all help each other through that. I think that's the way you organize in case of a disaster.
I don't know that the normal worker on the ground knew what you were doing. And I think we benefited from it, and we didn't even know it. But the normal person on the ground, we didn't know.
BP has reached an $18.7 billion settlement with the federal government and 5 states over that huge oil spill in 2010. The Justice Department says the money will help repair damages to the economy and environment of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. The settlement comes just as federal judge was about to rule on how much the British oil giant owed in Clean Water Act penalties.
My business, it lost up in the hundreds of thousands. And BP kept jerking me around. I'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go check the computer. Finally, one day, I said, I'm tired, I'm through with it, I'm finished with them. I took the $25,000 payout, and I never took a penny from them.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Walked away.
Oh, God, I'm sorry to hear you
And
say
that was, I said, I can do it. I made it without them, I finished it without them.
Yeah.
Yep, sure did.
Someone asked a question of me that because of the damage we had from this oil spill, did that make us want to join the cause of stopping offshore drilling? And I said, absolutely not. And said, but I do want them to put in the proper devices that keeps this from happening again.
As far as sustaining, you know, I think we've been here a long time, and we'll be here for a long time. Now, resilience is a different item. How you keep from changing Magnolia Springs into something totally different. Orange Beach at one time was very small, just a little fishing community. With the influx of tourism and the Hurricane Frederick that pretty well wiped the slate clean and gave the opportunity to build new things on all the old properties.
High-rise
condos. You know, that was a that would change everything.
It used to be more trees here on the island than what it is now. To build homes, they clear cut the lots, taking away the trees.
I don't think you should be able to cut quickly. They're not supposed to.
We just had
I don't know, but they do it.
Somebody, I'll say that he was financially able to do what he wanted. He bought 5 lots out here in the wooded area, and he clear cut the whole 5 lots. Now that's almost a big block of all the trees gone, and he built on that. Great big building that you could put probably 50, 60 boats in it, and a big house. That type, we don't need for somebody to come in here and build something like that and destroy the trees. The trees what's hold the island together.
Keep your environment open to the public. think of it down the road when there are a lot of people that you are even going to want more access to your nature and your environmental resources. They become more important the more you develop.
Unless the best places are available to everyone, your place will die. And unless we always have our best places available to everyone, Magnolia Springs can have that resiliency and that sustainability.
Sometimes you just can't prepare for all the unknowns, but if you live in a coastal community, what we've learned here is be honest with yourselves about building codes and everything, and do what's long-term is the right thing to do.
It's all about the people and the community of Dauphin Island working together. It really is. It's amazing.
And we all rely on each other, especially in disasters, which we've all experienced many times, and throughout those times and times where we don't have to confront that, we still rely on each other.
This is a lot of new development for our island. We talk in terms of having 6 million tourists a year in our area, and that's huge for us, and it does continue to grow. And every year we talk about how we have to keep up with infrastructure needs and what that growth means for our communities. But it's not something that's been around for a long time. It's a new development for us, and it can be scary.
One day my dad told me an infamous line. He said, if we make it out on the other side of this, because we didn't know if another unforeseen something was coming on the other side, he said, if we make it out of this alive, we're going to be different. We're going to be unique. We're going to be sustainable. We have to take a shift, because a piece of us right at this moment was beginning to change.
You know, some people don't ever want change. And but you got to change if you want to live in this world.